With 2 series and 200 episodes of television, what is it about a show that makes it successful to resonate with audiences?
I think the show actually has to be about something, even though like the concepts of both of the shows that I was on are insanity. A girl's able to hide her identity with a blonde wig and be an international pop star, while still being a regular girl at school. And then the other show being a strip mall sensei with a bunch of ragtag kids doing karate and fighting gangsters and dock workers. And like, they're so crazy. But at the end of the day, they were about something. You know what I mean? It wasn't about the wish fulfillment of Miley being Hannah Montana. It was really like this girl figuring out who she was and being like true to her friendship, especially with Lily on the show. And, Kickin' It was sort of this idea that all these ragtag kids, they're greater than the sum of their parts. And so it was like, how can these kids make each other better by like sticking together and being a part of, the Wasabi Warriors. But it really does come down to, is your show about something? If it's just nonsense, nobody will care. You have to have a reason to be invested in the characters. Otherwise, the comedy just doesn't land.
The groundedness of these characters that can relate to real people.
Yeah, I think, because, Jackson on Hannah Montana's not, he's insane. Right? He's over the top.
Understatement.
The energy is just off the charts. He's doing crazy things all the time. But if you look at everything he does, it all makes sense in the context of his character. Like, he's a kid that doesn't care that his sister's really famous. If anything, he just will use it to his advantage. But he treats her like a regular little sister, and he's making his own way. He makes his own money, even though he doesn't, he drives a crappy little chick car. He's scrounging money to go on his dates. But he is a really good big brother. He's a really good son. He treats people really well. And every time he does something crazy, it falls just sort of within like what his character actually is. It's not, it all makes sense in the context. So you can be as crazy as you want, as long as it's true to who that character actually is. You know what I mean? Like, once you sort of establish who he is, everything just needs to fit into that little bubble you've created.
Did you have an understanding of who Jackson was right from the beginning?
It took me a second because I couldn't figure out whether he was like genuinely stupid or if he was somebody that just was like motivated by different things and maybe a little ADD, and it was more a matter of he was not focused. And I think we landed on Jackson's not a dumb guy. He just has a little too much energy and an unorthodox way of trying to go after the things that he wants,
At that point, did you model him after anybody, or was there another character on TV that you had seen that, oh, this is kind of similar vibes?
I don't know if there was another character on TV, but like, I always loved Michael J. Fox, and I loved his energy and his just sort of like, he just had a certain presence in everything he did, whether it was Back to the Future or the show Family Ties he did way back when. There's like an impishness to him, there's like a playful,
unknowing.
Is he gonna get in trouble? And if he does get in trouble, it's the most harmless trouble. It's I feel like you root for Michael J. Fox in everything he was ever in. And I really wanted Jackson to be like somebody who was really funny and really crazy, but never crossed the line where you didn't root for him anymore. I guess maybe Michael J. Fox would be like a good sort of pattern for the type of person I wanted to be.
Was that something that you would do where you would like workshop the character that you were creating?
It was more blind instinct than anything. The writing was exceptional on the show.
And you could tell that from the script.
Yeah, because our showrunner, Steve Peterman, was somebody, he won 4 Emmys for a show called Murphy Brown way back when. It was like a primetime sitcom. He created Suddenly Susan. So like the caliber of writing and storytelling was really, really high from the beginning. So I had a lot of faith in the material, but then they also gave me a lot of freedom to, if there was something I wanted to try, if like I just naturally sort of went beyond the end of a scene and there was like a funny little button that I wanted to do, they just let me do stuff. So once I got the green light to do that, I think I relied more on just sort of instincts, what feels really funny and natural in the moment. And 9 out of 10 times that instinct was usually right and something we could use.
How far of a stretch was Jackson from Jason?
He's a pretty big stretch, actually.
So when you're putting those little improv parts out there, that's you being like, oh, this guy would do this.
It's weird because I think when like acting is really working, you don't think about anything. Like if you really do know the role and you know what that guy is about, when you step into the scene and you're actually doing this stuff, you don't think about anything.
You're
If
so lost in it.
Yeah, if I can hear my own thoughts when I'm in a scene, I'm going, "Oh, I'm messing this up. Like I'm not present. Like this is going to be more artificial than if they yell action and then the next thing I kind of know is they're yelling cut." That's when I know that like whatever I did probably worked, because you're just like you're not waiting for your line. You're like listening and you're reacting, and through the rehearsal, like the lines are there, but like you don't pre-plan everything. You don't pre-plan every joke. You don't pre-plan every physical action. You have a general idea and it all just lives in there, and then you barf it out and it's right. You know? It's a weird experience.
At what point in your acting career did you realize that? Like getting lost in it?
All the way back to I started out doing theater from like elementary school all the way through college before I moved to LA to like work in film and TV, and I always felt that way.
Where'd you move from?
I went to college in Billings, Montana. I grew up, for the most part, outside Portland, Oregon.
And how much was that acting scene in Montana? Was that strong?
I mean,
just theater?
it's small. Definitely, the program was really small. But what I loved about it was you didn't have to wait till like your junior, senior year to be in shows. Since the department was so small, you could, if you were good and you auditioned well, you could play parts from your freshman year. And then the other good thing about it was, since the department was so small, you had to do a little of everything. You had to learn light design. You had to build sets. You had to paint flats. You had to help with the wardrobe. We just didn't have enough bodies to like not do that. And so from a very early time in my acting experience, I always had a lot of appreciation for everyone else's job. Sometimes actors, all you do is you want to be an actor and you're in your little bubble and you feel like you're the most important thing in this and that's not true. There's 100 other people that are working on this thing that are trying to make you look good and trying to make the production good, and we're all pushing the boulder in the same direction. So I think being in a program where you had to do a little bit of everything made me really appreciate how much effort was going into all the other stuff around me as an actor. So that was a small program, not a super hot scene, but Montana does surprisingly have a couple of really cool like summer theater programs. I did the Montana Shakespeare in the Parks out of MSU Bozeman, which was incredible. We would spend all summer doing 2 different Shakespeare shows in rep, and we would go to tiny towns in Montana, Wyoming, northern Idaho, and we'd be the only thing that would come through town like all year. So you might have a town of like 100 people, and then people would come from like 100 miles all the way around. And in a town of 100, you might have 600 people show up for your show to see this Shakespeare in the Parks. It was just a really, really cool experience. And then I also did a couple of summers with the illustrious Virginia City Players in Virginia City, Montana, outside of Bozeman, and a big summer touristy town, and we always had really great shows. And so for a town in the middle of nowhere, there was a surprising amount of theater you could participate in. And I've always felt that you'll be a better actor if you act. And so you just had to find as many opportunities to be on stage and like practice and flex those muscles as possible.
That's what I was so excited to talk to you about, was that you have an understanding of every aspect of the industry.
Yeah.
Which really helps you out as an actor. Being a representative of Montana, how accurate is Yellowstone to the reality of it?
I mean,
are there families like that?
Yeah, there's big like historical ranch families that like have a tremendous amount of sway over the direction that the state is going.
The land, the wealth, the power.
They've just been there forever, and they're pretty entrenched in like how things go in the state. And it also represents how beautiful the state is. The first time I watched Yellowstone, I was having like immediate flashbacks to living in the state and just being like, oh, that's right. They call it Big Sky Country for a reason. Like you can't understand it until you're like there and you're just like, oh, you can see forever because it's so clear, and it's sky for miles.
My wife and I went in January because of Yellowstone to visit Jackson Hole. It was the most beautiful trip we've ever been on.
Yeah.
Absolutely remarkable.
The whole region is spectacular.
So when you move out to LA, how was it finding an agent and getting acting jobs?
I was hard. I mean, I had no ins any place. I didn't have anybody that worked in the business in my family. I didn't know even how to approach an agent.
Just a dream.
Yeah, I will say I did do a few things in college. They do those. They're like they're not conventions, but it's like you sign up, you pay your money, and then you do like an audition for a dramatic male, comedic male, maybe like 5 or 6 different categories, and then the judges at this convention thing are actual agents from LA. Like the Osprey Agency is a pretty nice agency in LA, and they were like one of the ones there. Like the Abrams artist was there, and so I went and to the convention, and I won all of my categories. And if you do well, then like the agents will like have a meeting with you there. And there were a few agents that were like, if you ever come out to LA, like look us up and tell us that we met you here at this convention in Hilton Head. It was actually Hilton Head was where they did it. And when I moved out to LA, I rang them up, and I took the meeting, but they didn't give a shit. They were just like, who, why, what? No. And so it didn't end up actually being an in, but it did help give me the confidence, I think, to move to LA, that they had already like seen some of my work, and somebody that was in the industry was like, oh, you're funny. Like you could potentially have a shot at it.
What was that first big break?
Well, the first job I ever booked was The Shield, which was this really popular gritty cop show.
It was
way back in
huge.
yeah. And the role I played a little Nazi skinhead kid. They shaved my head, they put a little Nazi swastika on my chest, and my scene was with Michael Chiklis in an interrogation room, and he basically just beats the piss out of me, like trying to get information about like somebody that that he was trying to find. And that was a really intense like first job for sure. And it gave me a lot of confidence that like, oh, I can actually hang with like real actors. And
You're
like,
going
I'm
side by side with Michael Chiklis.
Yeah. And then the first movie that I did right after that was National Treasure.
Crazy.
Which was really cool. That was a funny show, or a funny experience, because I probably shot maybe 3 or 4 more scenes than what actually ended up in the movie. And the director really liked my performance. John Turtletop really liked everything that I did in the movie, but he really didn't like the other actor in half of my scenes. And sort of out of spite for that guy, he just cut that dude like out of the movie, which cut half of my stuff out. But it was still really, really cool to like the first time you're in a movie theater and you see like your dumb little face on the screen. You're just like, holy cow, this is a real thing.
And who are you in relation to, Nicolas Cage?
I'm his like great grandfather.
Which kickstarts everything.
Yeah, the first person that learns the secret of Charlotte that like sets the whole sort of journey in motion. Yeah. It's a very bizarre thing. But my favorite part of that was I had to actually drive that stagecoach in the beginning of the movie. So like when we're racing through the streets with the rain machines and the lightning, and I'm actually like driving that coach like. Yeah, it was absurd amounts of fun.
Is that something in the audition that they ask if you can do it?
They ask you if you have any horse experience. And I actually, like, going into college in Montana, my girlfriend at the time was in the equestrian program, so I was around horses all the time, and I had, like, ridden horses. And oddly enough, when I was doing the Virginia City Players, they do these summer festivals all the time, and one of the things I got to do was drive a stagecoach down the main street. So I had actually driven a team before. A little bit. I maybe embellished a little bit, like how much experience I had, but I told him that I was comfortable with it. And so when we shot the movie, they actually just flew me out to DC maybe a week before I was supposed to shoot, and I worked with the stunt team. Like, we started off with like a 1-horse buggy, and then we did like a 2-horse buggy, and then they had a full coach with like a 4-horse team. Like, we just sort of worked our way up to what they wanted me to drive in the movie.
Does National Treasure feel like this massive big budget thing when you're filming it?
It does. Yeah, because when we were shooting all the stuff in D.C., like huge chunks of really famous, beautiful parts of D.C. were shut down so we can shoot the movie, and like a lot of my scenes were at night, in the rain, and so like there I am driving the coach. There's like 3 fire engines driving next to us down the street, firing water into the air, so it's always raining wherever I'm like doing the coach. And there's cops everywhere shutting streets down, and it's busy parts of DC where we're shooting this stuff. And Yeah, so you go, oh, this feels like a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. Like if you think about it too much, it gets overwhelming and it can sort of paralyze you. So I tried to not focus on that part of it. Just like do the job, don't get fired. That's like my mantra for my entire career is don't get fired. But I would say of the actual like first real big break, I think was Hannah. That was the first thing that I was like an actual steady part of, and whether the show was going to be good or not, I had an influence on that. You know, I was going to be there every day. So Hannah was definitely it was the turning point.
For that audition for Hannah Montana, did you realize what the role was going to be? Like it was going to be the star's older brother?
Yeah, I knew that it was that it was for the older brother, but it was a very different that character like evolved a lot through the course of development. I actually got a chance to read some early scripts, and he was everything from like an artist to like a jock to there was like several different iterations of him. And then the one that I auditioned for was a really introverted kind of weird older brother who just talked with his orangutan hand puppet, and it was just a very bizarre sort of a thing, and I did everything I could to make it funny, but I hated it. I was like, this is going to be really, really dumb.
Did you go in with a hand puppet?
I for my audition I made a sock puppet, and I drew two eyes on the front of it, and I was literally just doing sock puppet stuff.
Were there other guys in the audition room doing that too?
There was in the initial audition, I feel like there was a few other people that had puppety things. It was when I tested for the network that I was really intimidated because the other guy that was there had a full blown like professional like hardcore with like the mouth and the whole like it was real puppeteering. And I still rolled into Disney in front of all the Disney executives with my sock puppet. That's all I had.
Was it Hannah Montana slated to be a big Disney show? Like, was it destined for it?
No, I don't think so. I actually, I mean, I've heard a bunch of various versions of like how it came about, like multiple people sort of taking credit for where the idea came from. But I've heard that like it was really just something they were like fulfilling a contractual obligation to someone, just trying to burn off that last like deal that they had to do, and then this just sort of happened to be it. I don't have like direct firsthand knowledge. I just heard like through the grapevine. But at the end of the day, I think it was like anytime there's a music show, Disney's excited about the possibilities of it. But
because they have all those different verticals: the music, a superstar, a TV show, a movie.
Exactly. And I think that like once they cast Miley, I think that their expectations for the show probably started to get a little higher because they actually had found a girl who was really, really charming and who could actually sing. I think if you just do sort of what kid shows do sometimes, which is get a kid that can sing well enough, but like singing really isn't their thing. You don't buy into her being an international pop star as much. You know what I mean? I think the popularity of the show, what was crazy about it is we just told everybody that she's an international pop star. And then as soon as the show aired, everybody just assumed that she was an international pop star, and she was overnight an international pop star. So her first concert tour, she's just selling out stadiums because we told everyone she's a pop star. And since she could actually sing and back it up, then we weren't lying to them. We just told them that she was before she was.
What did Billy Ray Cyrus's influence have on the show as far as like his credibility to her stardom?
What's funny is like he was there and he was super supportive, but again, from my understanding, it wasn't dependent upon each other. Like Miley had the role before they cast a dad, and they were seeing other people for the dad, and it was sort of a last minute suggestion of like, well, Billy, why don't you like read as well? Or maybe Billy might have even asked would it be cool if I read as well? But like her getting it didn't hinge on him at all.
Oh, how cool.
So he might be the last series regular that was actually cast in the cast. I think him being on the show was a brilliant bit of casting, and I think it really worked for the show. Their relationship was immediately like believable because it was real. I think it helped her be really comfortable on set, having like that dad presence there. So it served us really well, but the young audience that was watching that show didn't know Billy as achy breaky heart like Billy Ray Cyrus. The parents might know,
but he was just a dad.
But he was just a dad. So her becoming like a really famous pop star in real life was because that's what the kids wanted, and they believed in her, and they liked her music, and they were willing to follow her. It wasn't led by Billy Ray being already a really established musician.
Was Hannah Montana originally called Dolly Hollywood?
That's a good question. It did have previous names. I know that like somebody had once said like Alexis Texas was one that was never a name. That could have been one of the early versions of the name. Yeah. Yeah.
Because Hannah Montana is such a good name.
It's the best version of that name for sure.
Do you remember that first day of filming on set, the cast all coming together? Did it feel like any other production you had done at that point? Like the chemistry?
Well, I thought the chemistry was great right off the bat. Like I was really nervous about fitting in with Miley and Billy Ray because they were, obviously have their entire lives together. But within an hour, they were treating me like part of the family. I never felt like the outsider in that group. And then watching Miley and Mitch Musso and Emily Osment like together on set from the very beginning, they were like the three amigos. They like they totally got along. They were running around being crazy, already super comfortable with each other. And I think that chemistry was one of the things that helped the show find its way really, really quickly. Because we were all just really comfortable with each other. I think if you're worried about like, oh, how are my new castmates going to look at me if I try to make some big, silly, stupid swing at an acting choice, like I'm going to go over the top here and then, oh, they laughed at me and now I'm scared to make those sorts of big choices anymore. We didn't have any of that. It was everybody was just willing to like get crazy. And if you get a big laugh, everybody's like, that's awesome. And if you don't, then it's like, no big deal. Like, that's funny that you tried, but like, let's go on to nobody like held that over each other's head or like made anybody uncomfortable. So I think that instant chemistry like made so much of the comedy actually like work.
What was the Disney Channel era at that point? Was it Disney Channel?
It was starting. It was like the right before us, I think, is when Disney started getting really good. It was
Raven?
That's So Raven. We were coming off of Lizzie McGuire and Even Stevens. So like those were sort of like
the build up.
Yeah, the build up. And then I really do feel like, when it was us and it was Wizards of Waverly and Sweet Life, having the Sprouse twins on the channel. And then now we start cranking out things like High School Musical. Like there was a era there that was, I think, some of the best writing, some of the best music. The channel was doing its best when it came to the cross promotions of everything. We were doing, crossover episodes on the shows. We were doing things like the Disney Channel games. So you're taking all of your favorite characters from all of the different properties and mixing them up. And it just made it seem like, oh my God, everybody on the channel knows each other. They're having so much fun together. I want to be a part of that. And the channel just did such a good job of promoting all that stuff back in the day. That felt like the window for like the best the channel ever was.
The golden era.
The golden era for it, yeah.
Because exactly that, if you were watching another network, you're just tuning in for that 30-hour block. You're not going to see those characters on another episode somewhere else.
Yeah.
You might, but probably not.
Yeah.
When you were doing the Disney Channel games, did that feel like it was like the Olympics for Disney?
Yeah, the first season was a little bit smaller. It was maybe had like 3 teams and maybe like 6 people on a team, and we shot at a little community college out in Santa Clarita. And so it felt a little bit more contained, but it was still like the first time we were like, oh shit, this is cool. Like we're seeing people from like, it was High School Musical and it was Sweet Life and it was us. And it was really fun to like mix it up. But the last 2 years when we actually went to Florida and we shot at the Wide World of Sports complex and we had actual fans in the stands and the size of the events, like we're doing giant blow up obstacle courses and the hamster ball runs and, life-size foosball. And like, there was just all these crazy events and huge concerts at the end of the night. We were doing just the scale of it was like, oh, this is the Disney Channel Olympics. Like I said, it was massive.
Being a little older than the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Are you paying attention to the other shows on the network like Jonas and Sweet Life?
Yeah, a bit.
Are you seeing like what works on their writing show? Do you see the rise of theirs?
What's so funny is like I'm a little petty in that like I was really competitive. Like I wanted our show to be the best show on the network. So I was like, people would be like, "Oh, I really love Wizards." I'm like, "Yeah, Wizards is the second best show on the network." They do a really good job over there.
Is this in interviews or this is
Just
you
in
talking?
general, just
Yeah.
in general. Like and in interviews, but like also just like whenever I talk to anybody. And then so I was hyper competitive, but when it came to Disney versus Nickelodeon, I was like, nah, like F Nickelodeon, like iCarly. But like, I mean, iCarly was a fantastic show, and they were doing great stuff over there. But I was way competitive with Nickelodeon, and I would defend all the Disney shows. But then if you got rid of Nickelodeon and it was just the Disney shows, then I was really competitive against the other Disney shows.
Were you watching Nickelodeon at that time?
I mean, I would see some stuff. I wasn't like watching religiously or anything, but I was aware of, especially like iCarly, because that was the one that was like, I feel like the main competitor on that side when we were doing our show.
What did it feel like at the height of Hannah Montana?
It was crazy. It was a little overwhelming. From the standpoint of like, we went from just doing our teeny little Disney show in the beginning, where it was just like, Disney summer theater camp, to trying to figure out how do we schedule this? Like we're gonna do our season, but Miley has to go out and tour. She's most likely going to do a movie between seasons. We're all being asked to do like DComs in between. Suddenly there's like 9,000 more moving parts. And then the other thing that like you're never really prepared for until it happens is your like loss of privacy. So you go from just being able to go anywhere you want and do whatever you want to, anytime, like me, I'm really self-conscious when I eat. And now every time I'm in public, especially during the height of Hannah, like people are like looking at you. And so I was always like, I always hated eating any place because I knew people were watching me cram food into my head and I just couldn't like, it was just a weird sensation. And then eventually you learn how to like sort of tune things out and to sort of go about your business. But I think just the endless attention and losing your privacy is like the biggest adjustment that's when you knew that it was more than just like a little show. It was like, oh, you're like, you'd be like in Italy and somebody from, Switzerland would come up and be like, oh, we love your show. And it's like, I'm in a different country and somebody from yet another country is telling me that they watched the show. Just the global scope of it was humbling, I guess.
Because that's the gauge of popularity, because there is no social media to have those numbers.
Yeah.
And the network's not really going to pump up, oh, you guys are crushing it.
Well, they do until it comes time to like look at your deal.
To renew the
and they're like,
contract.
it's just a Disney show. And you're like, it's a Disney show, but we're on in 150 countries and like we generated $1 billion in revenue, but like, okay. It's a funny... It's depending on the day was how popular your show was in Disney's eyes.
What's it like for you going out into the real world, going to Target, Walmart, and seeing the branding everywhere?
Like now or then?
Then
was insane. Like, because every store had just like, it was like an aisle of Hannah stuff. And I have 11 nieces and nephews. And so every time I would go home to visit, I was just inundated with like Hannah merch that I needed to sign for my nieces and nephews and their friends. And you would see your face on Uno cards and on blankets, and there's something very weird about being in general like a relatively like shy guy, not loving taking pictures and seeing your picture on everything.
pencils,
Yeah,
pencil cases, notebooks,
toothbrushes that sing. Just endless merchandise.
With the merchandising like that, does it feel like this show is going to stick around for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like we always felt that we'll probably do this show until Miley doesn't want to do the show anymore. Once her outside opportunities get too big, or her
The opportunities out.
the opportunity, yeah, because eventually Disney historically will only do 3 seasons, and so the fact that she wanted to come back and do a 4th season and get over 100 episodes, she was pretty instrumental in us going as long as we did. And it's not, and I don't even think it's a matter of like she decided to walk away. At the end, we had pretty much told the story. We told all of the secret keeping stories and how that impacted her life, and then revealed the secret, and still had another 5 or 6 episodes afterwards to see sort of the fallout in her life. But I feel like everybody involved, the writers, Miley, we told the story, the best version of the story that we could at the time.
How'd you feel when the show came to an end?
I was sad. Yeah, I was definitely sad. The The thing that I think this is a weird reaction, but I was sad for myself, and then I was also sad that other people weren't more sad. Like, because I think by the time we got to the end, like Miley and Emily and Billy Ray, they were really satisfied with what we had done. They were all ready to sort of see what was next. And so I don't think they were as directly as sad about the ending as I was. And I was like, don't you guys want to hang out with me? Don't we want to keep doing this? And it wasn't anything personal, but I think they just were ready to sort of like see what was, what else was out there. And so like, yeah, part of my sadness was like, I just want everybody to be as sad as I am about this ending.
Do you think that was with your experience? Like you knew this was a really good thing you guys had together?
I think because I was older on the show, I always had like a slightly different perspective, especially since when I first moved to LA and I didn't know anything, I spent like 3 years just doing extra work and stand-in work. I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs just being moving scenery in the background of a bunch of different things. And it took me a long time even just to get an agent, let alone book a job like Hannah. So like by the time it happened, I was really appreciative of the job. I knew like what else was out there and how hard it is to make any sort of progress in your career.
It was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, and to see that it was lightning in a bottle, and then to also initially go into it thinking, oh, we're just going to do our dumb little Disney show, and in 3 years nobody will ever know that we did it, and I'll be starting over again, and having it turn into 150 countries. Our new episodes are doing like 4.5 million, viewers, which at the time for a basic cable kids show, those numbers are insanity. I knew how big it was. I knew that it would probably be one of the most special things, no matter what my career did, it would be one of the most special things I was ever a part of. And so when it ended, I think I knew all of that stuff. And so I was sadder that it was over. I think that since this was like the very first thing not the very first thing, because like Emily had done like, some movies and other stuff, but like, I don't think they knew what the grind was that was coming, or like how hard it would be to capture a group like that again and to be a part of something as special as that. So they were just more optimistic, and I was a little bit more, oh shit, here we go again. We're starting over, and we just did this really amazing thing that I don't know if anything will ever match this again.
Because the elements of B are not only it has to be the right cast, it has to be the right network, it has to be the right timing, it has to be the right everything.
Yeah.
Which you don't really realize until you're out there and swinging and missing.
And you might do another show that's really popular and people love, but the success of that show was like a level that you couldn't realistically hope for. The fact that it happened is a miracle. But if I had gone into a Disney show thinking like this is what it's going to turn it, like that's just nothing like that had ever happened before. So why would that be the case? Yeah. So, but I feel very fortunate because when I did Kickin' It right afterwards, I had a very similar experience from the standpoint of I loved the cast. I loved all the people that were working on the show. It was 4 years of just goofing off and having a great time and being really proud of a show, even though the show is chaos and makes no sense. It was a tremendous amount of fun and I loved my time on it. It never achieved the success of Hannah, obviously, but I did feel really lucky that, I basically spent 10 straight years doing shows with people that I really, really liked. So I definitely feel very grateful about that.
So there were similar elements from Hannah and Kickin' It.
Yeah, the instant chemistry was one of them. Like all those kids, they were so fun to hang out with. They were so willing to be goofy and look stupid in front of each other because we were all being goofy and looking stupid in front of each other. And I think the martial arts element of it was really, really fun. And we were all super into figuring out how to make that as cool as possible on the show. So, yeah, I think we got really, I got lucky 2 times in a row on that.
Was Kickin' It an audition or a direct offer?
No, I actually went after the 3rd season when I knew we were going to do a short 4th season for Hannah. I called the head of the network at the time, Gary Marsh, directly and just said, hey, I'd love to schedule a little meeting and talk about the future. I have really loved my time on the channel. If there was ever anything else you wanted to do, let me know. I love being in the Disney business. I hope Disney wants to be in the Jason business because like this has been really good for me.
Great line.
And then maybe 2 weeks later, he reached out and was like, "We have a pilot. It's one of 2 that we're considering for the fall. Let me send you the script, and if you like it, we'll set up a meeting with the executive producer." And read it and thought it was a really fun script. Ended up meeting with Jim O'Doherty like the next week, and then it was basically a straight offer from there.
Wow. Yeah, Mitchell said that you guys could just contact the higher ups and be like, "Hey, let's do something." They're like, "Okay, let's see what we've got."
Yes, yeah. Sometimes it actually like worked out that way.
That's incredible.
It was cool. Hannah was a really big deal for them, and so I think they were smart to be like, well, how can we
keep these
this
guys
thing
in our
going?
aura?
Yeah.
How much of the physical stunts did you do on Kicking It?
Most of it. Yeah. I mean, anytime if there was a fight and it was like somebody's doing like a giant flying, spinning 540 kick or something, that's going to be a double for me.
Yeah, right.
But all the other stuff, if it was like fighting on the ground, if you're just kicking and punching and what, like that was 90% of the time that would have been me. Any of the actual sort of stunt stuff, like if you're going to fall over a table or you're going to crash through like I would do most of that stuff. Leo was the one as an actual black belt in real life. He did like all of his own fights. If there was spinning, flipping, butterfly twists, jujitsu, whatever, that was all Leo all the time.
What was it like watching him do those?
It was awesome. And it was really impressive because when we first started, he was like 13, 14 years old. So he was my size. He ended up being like, 5'10" and 180 pounds and like jacked. And, he definitely grew into a much bigger man than me. But when he first started, he was my size and he was still doing all these crazy physical things. He could flip in a way that like I didn't think a 13-year-old could possibly, throw their body around like that.
Right.
But I was impressed right off the bat with his physical abilities.
How much did it life change for you being on a new show now, staying on the same network? Is it pretty similar?
Yeah, it is pretty similar. I mean, again, since it was a smaller show, the network's attention and the resources and like the outside responsibilities are a little less. But since I was coming off of Hannah, like I had a deal where I would be up in the writer's room on Kicking It. And so if I wasn't like rehearsing, I would be up there.
Are you pitching ideas?
Yeah, pitching some jokes and like giving opinions about like what actually works down on the stage and what doesn't. And then a little bit later in that show, I started directing some of the episodes. So I was getting a chance to experience it from that side as well.
Did you like it?
I did actually. I think it goes all the way back to that stuff we were talking about in the theater where like if you understand how all the parts work, then you're better at whichever part you're doing. So like when I finally got a chance to direct, I understood like what an actor wants to hear as a note. Even if you have a technical reason that you want an actor to do something, give them an actor reason for them to do that something. I may need you to move over there so that way I can flip your coverage. Because Disney wants you to constantly be flipping coverage and make it energetic. I'm not going to tell you that as an actor. I'm going to say, look, you're really frustrated with him, so I want you to go over there to get a little distance before you re-engage with the fight. So you give them an actor reason that they can actually hold on to. Don't bother them with the technical reason you're doing it as a director. And then as an actor, spending all that time in the writer's room, if I got a script for the table read, I didn't want to just like tank or shit on any of the jokes. I saw how much effort went into putting that script together. So I'm going to do it the best I can in the table read, try to sell it for the network, try to make the writers' jobs easier so they don't have to rewrite a bunch of my stuff. And honestly, it made my job as an actor easier because I always found that if you kill the jokes in the table read, they rewrite your stuff less for the next day's rehearsal, which means you get to prepare what you already know a little more, which means you'll crush the jokes in that run through so they don't rewrite your stuff as much for the next. So like you're refining something that works versus trying to reinvent the wheel every day. And by the time you get to shooting, it's just easier. You know what I mean? That's how if you do it that way, that's how you get into your flow state where you're not thinking about everything. You've just been rehearsing basically the same stuff all week, so you can just go and do it without having to think about it.
Because your job as an actor is to deliver those lines the best that you possibly can.
Yeah. You want to find the funniest way to deliver the material that's on the page, and if you can find added funny that's not necessarily explicitly written on the page, that's just a bonus. But it's harder to find those moments if you're fighting against the lines. So if you're really comfortable with all the stuff you're saying, then natural reactions to things in the moment that are funny, those things, it's easier for that stuff to happen if you're not fighting the material.
How different of a job is being a director on a kids' TV show versus a regular show?
I think it might be the hardest version.
Because you have to communicate to kids in a way that they understand?
You have to communicate with kids in a way they understand. You have to be really careful about crushing their confidence, because some kids take notes really well. They don't care. Other kids, any note you give them feels like a criticism, and so they'll start to shrink in on themselves, and you have to figure out a way to communicate that stuff without ruining their natural instincts and the things they want to do.
Did you see that happen on set to
sometimes
guest stars?
There would be times where like we'd have, because you are always cycling through different directors, you'd have directors come in and they'd be a little too direct and too harsh with the kid, because that's how you can be on a network sitcom, and I'd watch a kid just fold. And so after the director would leave, I would swoop in and like redo the note in a way that like the kid understood, and also let them know that like it's not a criticism of your abilities, like this is why this is happening. I was always really good at sort of like smoothing over those sorts of things. But the other reason why the directing a kid show is so hard is you have kid hours. On Friends, if the jokes aren't working, you can stay on the floor and keep rewriting and try new stuff and keep rewriting and try stuff. And the only thing that prevents you from doing that forever is money. Like, how much money do you want to pay in overtime to the crew? But you can solve all your problems with money. When you run out of kid hours, you run out of hours. Miley can only be on set for 9 hours, and that includes school and lunch. So if you don't have your shit together and you don't get through the material, there's no fixing that. So the time crunch is by far the most challenging part of directing and accomplishing kids' TV. Yeah.
Did they put you in separate scenes so that there were no restricted hours?
Yes, that's ultimately the probably the greatest thing that Jackson brought the writers on the show, was you could do entire B stories where, you cut out 4 scenes with me and Rico or me and my dad, and then that is time that you start a day with a Jackson scene, you shoot Miley as much as you can, you end the day with the Jackson scene.
Because you're there all day.
Because you're there all day. They don't have to worry about cutting me loose, with kid hours. So I was their built-in buffer. So yeah, that ended up being a pretty essential part of what I was doing on that show, and why oftentimes you'll see huge chunks of episodes where I'm not in the A story with like the kids doing the shenanigans. There are some family episodes, but there's a lot of times where it's, me and Rico, it's me and Oliver doing something, it's me and Billy Ray doing something.
I found that out with Malcolm in the Middle, which is why the older brother's off at
always doing
another state doing his own storyline.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where Miley just exploded?
I mean, it really was so fast after the show premiered that she was like world famous, where going out with her was suddenly like challenging, where paparazzi were like staking out her house and following her to and from work, and where, we used to be able to drive down the street from our studio and grab sushi together as a cast. The second we left the studio, paparazzi are following, and it just ended up being a hassle. And that was almost from the very, very beginning of the show when it premiered.
Did the pilot episode have crazy numbers?
I think our pilot was, if it's not the highest, at the time it was probably the highest pilot premiere on the channel. Oh, wow. We actually have an episode that I think it was the Jonas Brothers episode, where we did like 10.7 million people watched it. It was higher than the series finale of The Sopranos. Just crazy numbers that I don't think they do now.
What was the celebrity life like as far as who was coming in to watch Hannah Montana?
That was where it got really crazy, starting maybe halfway through the second season and into the third season for sure. We would have people like Larry David would come with his daughters and like be watching in the audience our live show on Friday.
And you're performing in front of Larry David.
And we're performing in front of Larry David. At one point, Tom Cruise wanted to come to the set because his son Connor was interested in learning about how TV is made. So Tom Cruise and his son sat in on a table read and hung out for rehearsals. And we're just like, what the hell is this? Like, what is happening right now? And that's actually how we ended up getting Larry David on the show. Was he brought his daughters, to watch the show, and then a few weeks later we were like, if they enjoyed watching the show, maybe they would like to be on the show. If you come do this episode, you can bring the girls and we'll write them a few lines. And so we ended up getting, Brooke Shields is our mom on the show. John Cryer is Lily's dad. David Koechner plays our Uncle Earl. We got Dolly Parton, John Cena, The Rock. Just a weird laundry list of super famous people that came on the show.
How did the John Cena meme become a thing?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think I realized at the time we were the same age. Like when we shot that episode, I just remember being like, "Oh, John Cena, that's awesome," and we did the thing.
Did you know who he was? Like, did you know WWE?
I knew he was a although you can't see, I knew all that stuff. So I was stoked that he was there on the show. I didn't find out until recently that was like his first acting job.
Really,
first acting job ever.
Oh wow.
And it was years later that one of those, meme websites or whatever figured out that we were the same age. And then they took that picture of us on set and been like, crazy fact of the day, Jason and John Cena are like literally 3 days apart. And for 15 years, people have been sending me that meme of the two of us together. And it was maybe 2 months ago. Did you see the Jimmy Fallon?
Oh, I have to. Oh, wait. No, what?
Okay, so about 2 months ago, John Cena's on Jimmy Fallon, and he's like, "Hey, so your first job was like on Hannah Montana?" He was like, "Yeah, it was awesome. It's such a good time." And Jimmy's like, "So did you get a chance to meet Miley?" And he's like, "No, I didn't. But I worked with some kid." And then so Jimmy like pulls out a picture, and it's of me when John Cena's got me over his shoulder and he's getting ready to throw me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the kid." And he's like, "Yeah, this is Jason. He played Jackson." And he was like, "Did you know that you guys are the same age?" And John was like, "What?" And so it was the first time that John Cena had ever heard that we were the same age. And for 15 years, I've been wondering, like, does John Cena know? Like, has anybody ever gone up to him and been, "Did you guys know you were the same age?" Because every year for my birthday, people send that to me. And then at one of the conventions that I've done recently,
just a couple weeks ago,
John was there, and he's so nice. We were able to recreate our little picture 15 years later or whatever. He was very funny about it.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
What happens on the Disney Channel original movies? Are those direct offers or are those auditions? Some
of them are auditions. The one that I did between season 1 and season 2 was called Dad Napped, and that was a direct offer. That was a deal where I think they just had a bunch of us that they were trying to get work during the writer's strike. There was a writer's strike coming up. And so that movie is insanity because it's me, it's Emily Osment from our show, it's Moises Arias who played Rico from our show, it's David Henry from Wizards, it's Phil Lewis from Sweet Life, and then George Newbern who was in Father of the Bride. He played the dad on the show. But there was 5 of us from from different shows crammed into this movie, and the movie's insanity. I play the bad guy, and I'm literally I'm gonna murder this dude so that way the last book that he writes is worth more money. It just is, it's crazy. But that was one where I think from all of us on our show, it was a direct offer.
Do you remember when you get the first wand?
Yeah.
Was that a big deal?
Yeah, I think everybody was really excited about getting your first wand ID. And then there was competition with well, you got to figure out something fun to do with the wand because you do your little Mickey ears, but then you got to figure out whether is it this? Is it? I think at one point
throw it up in the air, catch it.
I think I did a golf swing for one. I did a Irish flute whistle for one. I think I did a twirling mustache for one. Because every year you'd go through and you'd re-record a new wand ID for your show.
With Wizards coming back, they have a run. Yeah. Can you ever see Hannah Montana coming back for a little run?
I don't know. It is 100% dependent upon Miley's interest. I don't think the channel would ever reboot it, redo it, touch the property again unless Miley was like directly, actively interested in doing something with it.
Like being on screen for it?
Yeah, I think at least some on screen, whether even if it was like what Selena did, where it's like I'm going to be in the first of the season and the end of the season, or but I think that they would have to have like a meaningful endorsement from her. I think for the channel to be interested, I think there's definitely a world where it makes sense. Me and a couple of the writers have pitched several versions of a reboot or a spinoff to the channel that I really like. The most recent one had like a K-pop component to it because I love K-pop, and it's been. I think there's a very interesting version that could incorporate some of that into it, but I think that it really would depend on her. But there's more stories to tell, especially since social media wasn't really a part of our world back then.
Which it totally would have crushed if it had been.
Yeah, but even like her as a pop star in our show, she dealt with paparazzi, but she never dealt with anything social media related, and all of the problems for like a teenager trying to figure themselves out that presents to them. Do you know what I mean? So I just feel like there's a whole other aspect of what that experience, being a teenager, figuring out who you are, what you want your mark in music to be, that you could explore that we just never even had the option to do last time.
Do you remember hearing the Hannah Montana songs for the first time? Like, did they feel special?
Yeah, I think I wasn't the target demographic for the Hannah songs when they were coming out. I was being a little bit older.
But could you tell that the audience?
But I could tell they were earworms. They were like very, very catchy. And compared to a lot of other like songs in that genre of like sort of Disney poppy songs, I thought that they were really good in comparison.
I remember Party in the USA being the first like outside of that world.
Outside of it, yeah. I think she started doing a lot of her music alongside the Hannah Montana music, and I think I gravitated toward her music a little bit more than the Hannah Montana stuff. But that being said, almost every episode of that first season, you know, there was one of her songs were incorporated into it, whether it was like we're seeing concert footage in the beginning, or, you know, her heart's been broken by Jake, so she's sitting on the back porch and she's strumming a new little song that's helping her, you know, get through her sorrow. And every time I heard her sing in real life on the set, I was like, oh, you're special. Whatever comes out of your mouth, people are going to really enjoy, you know? And that was especially true before we did the Hannah Montana movie, because she was on set tinkering on the piano or tinkering with her guitar for The Climb and for Butterfly. And hearing early versions of that as she was sort of working that stuff out was really, I was like, this is going to be massive.
With the 20th anniversary coming up, that happened.
Yeah.
What was it like getting everybody back together that was there?
I mean, everybody that was able to make it, it was so nice to see. It was so nice to see. I would have loved a version of it where everybody, and by everybody I mean not only like the series regulars, but some of the, like we had Amber and Ashley were able to show up, Shanika and Anna Maria. But I would have loved more of like the crew that worked on the show. Everybody top to bottom on that were so special to the experience for me. I would have loved to have found a way to celebrate with all of them. But the ones that made it, I was thrilled to see. It was always incredible to see Miley. You know, here we are 15 years later, and she'll always be a little sister to me, but I'm also a massive fan. I just think she's crazy talented. And so every time I get to see her, I'm just like in awe. The one that was the most special for me though was Moises. I love Moises so much. I didn't think he was going to end up being at the premiere. And when he showed up, it was a total surprise. And I was like, I was over the moon. I think he's the coolest.
I think with the hunger that the fans still have, I could see something happening for the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I know that like Mitch came here.
Yeah.
And which talks a little bit about the 20th anniversary and had mentioned that he just envisioned it or wanted something different out of it. And I think that's like a really valid reaction. I think that there is hunger to either see everyone together and just let that be its own thing, or, you know, tell one more little story, whether it's a one-off special episode, it's another movie, it's something where you get a chance to see where the characters are at now. I think all of those desires are really valid.
I think what they did with Malcolm in the Middle was so cool. It was originally a movie. They split it into 4 parts, and it's once a week.
Yeah, I think anything like that would be really satisfying, for sure.
If they called you to do that, you would do
100%, 100%. Yeah, anything that they wanted, whether it was like we're gonna do a one-off episode, we're gonna do a movie, we're gonna do another version of the special, and the only thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do a couple of sketches. We're gonna do a couple of scenes. My silly pitch for the 20th anniversary was like, okay, well, maybe what it is, even if we're not in it, it's like me and Rico trying to get into the special, and the security guard Roxy like a puma is like, chasing us away. And so the entire special, you just see these quick little, like almost like Saturday Night Live sketches of us, for 20 seconds trying to do some shenanigans to break our way in. Like even just little snippets like that for the fans, I think would be like a really fun, satisfying like tribute to the show.
Can we fire through some fan questions?
Sure.
What's your favorite memories from filming Kickin' It?
I do an episode later in the series where Jack really wanted to be a sensei, and so we're in a sensei tournament against each other, and I actually fight Leo in that episode. And the fight is really cool. We do all this slow motion stuff, but I have so much respect for Leo as a person and for him as a martial artist and an actor, and I loved our fight choreographer, and so to actually get a chance to do that with him was one of my favorite memories from the show.
How did your iconic hair from Hannah Montana come together?
I just stopped getting haircuts.
Is that what your audition was? Did you go in like that?
It got, at one point, Mitch and I, our hair was crazy. It was
wild.
Way too long. I think when it was like sort of where Zac Efron ended up, that was a pretty good spot for it, where it was just sort of moppy, but it wasn't like, at one point, even the back was like, it was too much.
Is that your guys doing?
Well, so I was not having a ton of luck as an actor with really short hair. So I was like, I'm going to mix it up and I'm going to let it grow out a little bit and just sort of see what happens. And it was around that time that like the Hannah audition happened. And then I just didn't cut it. So by the time we actually went to shoot the pilot, it was a little more moppy. And since it was Malibu and he was like a beach kid, it made sense. And it just kind of stuck and spiraled out of control. And Mitch doesn't have, he has like a little bit longer hair, but not nearly what it became. In the beginning, he was a little more cleaned up.
Did that hair make you look younger, you think?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
Because in your audition, it came out that they'd asked for your age and you said you were 18.
Yeah.
But in reality, you were a little older.
Yeah, I was like in my late 20s. I was like 27-ish, somewhere in there.
Because then that hair it had to help with it.
Yeah, it had to help. I mean, I had like a pretty boyish face at the time. But yeah, the hair probably did help.
Did you ever envision yourself playing a younger role like that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I was not auditioning for my age ever. Every time I would get sent out for anything that was like mid-20s or above, the casting would just laugh at me. Early on, when I first got an agent, I went in for a couple of beer commercials because you have to be 25 to be able to be in beer commercials. And I would show up for the audition and it would be like me and 5 dudes that were like 6 foot tall and 200 pounds and jacked. And they'd be like, all right, so we're going to see improv. It's like you guys are at the bar and you guys are scoping out the babes. And it's like me with that dumb little boy face and these men. And I'm just like, this is stupid. Like, nobody's going to buy this.
Did you book it?
No, God, no. They literally laughed me out of the room. They were like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know. But like I ran into problems all the time where like I would go to an audition and because I looked young, like maybe the role would be like 17 or whatever. And I would go in and I'd have a really good audition and then casting would go, oh, you're really funny. How old are you? And I'd be like, oh, I'm over 18, just because letting them know that I don't need a set teacher or a guardian on set. And they're like, no, but like, how old are you actually? And I was like, I don't really want to say. And then they go, well, it's just between us. It's not that big of a deal. And then at the time I'd be like, oh, I'm like 26. And they'd go, yeah, I can kind of see that. and then they wouldn't consider me for the role anymore.
That definitely adjusts something in their head.
It changes something in their head, but then at the same time, I had an audition exactly like that, and then within a week, I had an audition where the role was like 16, and then had the audition, crushed it. Casting was like, well, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm over 18, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, how old are you really? And I go, and then I just said, well, like, I'm 18, and they go, oh, you look a little too young for the part is the problem.
It's crazy. And
so I was like, well, why am I going to like hamstring myself with like giving them specific numbers when the truth is they're only legally allowed to ask you if you're 18. And if they ask you for a specific number, it's age discrimination. So if they ask you if you're 18 and you say, yeah, I'm 18, you're not really lying. You're just answering the legal part of the question. You know what I mean? And there's already so many reasons that you don't get cast in things. Why
don't add more?
Don't give another obstacle to you actually booking the job.
Right.
So when they asked me, I just told them when I was 18 that I was a legal adult, and anything beyond that was their problem to figure out later.
Were you ever asked for Dancing with the Stars?
I was. I was the season after Billy Ray was on. They asked. I had a meeting.
Did you consider it?
I did seriously consider it. The reason why I didn't do it is we were still smack in the heart of Hannah, and like the schedule was pretty crazy. And I saw how tired Billy Ray was because we were shooting the show while he was doing the show, and he was just blown out. And I was really afraid that I was going to do a bad job on both if I tried to do them at the same time.
Right.
So I was like, I think I would have been more open to it if it was like as Hannah was ending. But yeah, it never came back around again in a timing way that made sense.
Are there any Disney Channel shows or movies that you would have loved to be on?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I do love magic stuff, so I wouldn't have mind being on Wizards. Also because my wife constantly tells me that while she loves Hannah Montana, she preferred Wizards of Waverly. So I would like to have been on my wife's favorite show at some point, so that way she could think I'm cool.
Did you and Miley form a brother-sister bond on the show?
Yeah. I really did look at her like she was my obnoxious little sister. We loved making fun of each other, but we also were really close. Like we talked about life issues. Like we leaned on each other as we were sorting out things with the show, and across the board, I think the entire cast was really close like that. I looked at Miley and Emily and Mitch as my little siblings. I looked at Billy Ray as an uncle type. I would talk to him and get advice from him about things. Even Emily's dad, who was sort of her acting coach and a constant presence on set, I would lean on him and ask him acting questions and business questions and life advice. It was, I think, across the board, the relationships felt very family-like,
Did you have any favorite lines of your character?
Oh, gosh. Every time for the podcast, we have been going back through and like watching episodes, and
on your podcast,
yeah, and almost every time I'm just like, oh, that's one of my favorites. There's just so many. There's a silly sequence with Mitch actually where I'm snaking out the kitchen sink, and I'm singing a dumb little song to myself. It's like, hey, come on, get out. I'm snaking out the pipes now. It's just so dumb. But he comes in and he's looking for Miley, and he goes, hey, Jackson, where's Miley? And I go, don't know. And he goes, well, do you know when she'll be back? Don't care. Well, can you tell her I stopped by? Don't count on it. But it's just like this great like sequence of, and then we end up calling it back later in the episode, and it just works every time. Yeah. I think Jackson was funny. I watching it now, especially since there's so much time has passed, I don't really look at it as me anymore. Now it's just like a show that's on, and I find Jackson pretty funny, actually.
Do you have any guests coming up on your podcast that you're excited about?
We just today, I believe, dropped our episode with Frances Collier, who played Roxy. So Roxy like a puma. And then tomorrow we're doing a little record, and Lisa London, who was the casting director for the pilot, is going to be on. So we're going to pick her brain about everything that went into casting all the series regulars, and if there was any like people who almost got cast, her first impressions of all of us when she first met us, whether she thought we were actually going to get the role, or if she tried to champion anybody, but it didn't work out. I'm just so curious to hear her memories of what it was like to put the pilot together.
Did they do screen testing together?
It wasn't screen testing like where we're actually shooting anything, but when I went back to test for the network, after my first audition, I read the scenes that I read in the initial audition, and then they also had me read with Miley, sort of a chemistry read, but I think they wanted to see how a couple of the different options for the brother would look with her, and then what their energy would be like. And I remember from the very first time I read with Miley, I was like, I felt very comfortable. I felt like she was somebody that I could make fun of, and she wasn't going to take it personally. Which meant that if we actually played brother and sister, that was going to like work perfectly. We would. I think if you're really afraid of offending the other person,
it's tough.
It's really hard to figure out what that boundary is. Like, how far can I push the comedy? How far can I go in this direction before I make the other person uncomfortable? Because you don't ever want to make the other person uncomfortable. And I felt from the beginning that like, oh, Miley, she's game for anything. She can dish it as well as she can take it. Like,
she's down to be the butt of the joke.
That was, I think, the most charming part of her. And one of the things, even to this day, that is just magic about her is she's not afraid to be the messy one. She's not afraid to, like, goof on herself. I thought the whole time watching the show that one of the reasons why people loved her is she was so relatable. Like, she felt like somebody that would be really fun to hang out with.
Because time will tell the true colors. And after 20, 30, 40 episodes, if she's the only one not getting clowned on, it's not fun.
Yeah. I think the other show I did, Kickin, had actually suffered from that a little bit. The first season or two, they were really, really reluctant to have Jack, the main kid, be the one that was in trouble or who made the mistake. He was always sort of the white knight that saved everything at the end, which was fun for me because that meant that as the sensei, I didn't have to be the guy that was always right. I was making more mistakes than the kids were, and a lot of times the comedy came from that. But Leo's a really funny guy. And when you have to be the white knight all the time and you're not the butt of the joke, it's hard to be funny in that scenario.
Yeah.
And I think we underutilized him comedically in the first couple of seasons, even while we leaned on him from the martial arts standpoint,
Do you think that changed just later on after seeing that?
Yeah. I think especially later on, we got really good at like letting him sometimes look a little dumb, and it made him, I think, much more likable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome getting to talk to you.
Yeah, this was super fun.
Thanks so much for coming by.
Yeah.
Your podcast is being linked down below, guys. Go subscribe. And what else do you have coming up? Any more cons?
Yeah, I've been doing some nostalgia cons. Might do a couple of other cons, but me and Mitch have actually been getting out there together and meeting the fans, and it's been really fun. I think it's been really good for him. I think for a while he had to take a little step back from the Hannah Montana of it all and sort some stuff out in his own life, and he's just doing so good. He's like taking really good care of himself, and I watch him engage with the fans of these things, and he's so it makes people so happy. So I've been loving doing that. We'll post on our socials anytime we've got more shows coming up. So definitely, I hope people come out and see us. And then I just finished a teeny little part in a teeny little movie that I'm NDA'd, so I can't say. But like around February of next year, there's a movie that'll come out that I got a little part in that I'm very, very excited about. I think people will really enjoy.
Where will that be?
It'll most likely be on Hulu. Outside chance it could be a theatrical release, but it is a property that people, it sort of has a cult following, and I think people will be excited about the second one.
Amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for coming by, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. See you guys. That was great.